dude just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Taco Tuesday. Let's start off with some levity because it is indeed Taco Tuesday. Hit it, man.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
Yeah, it is. Speedy Gonzalez says so. Taco Tuesday. Welcome to it. Glad you're here. And oh, by the way, that's the JP pushing buttons on the board. Hey, buddy. How are you?
Howdy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just watching the news.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I think everybody is.
Pressing times right now. But yeah, still Taco Tuesday.
It is. I mean, that is, I feel like that's got to be a priority when you start show to acknowledge just Taco Tuesday. Now we can go on.
Now we can do all the serious stuff, as long as we know it's Taco Tuesday. All right, got a great show laid on for you, by the way. No guests on purpose. I wanted to spend time just unpacking some stuff. And we're going to spend a lot of time dealing with what is happening in the Middle East. So very first out the gate is going to be all about that. So why don't I just tell you what the Triple Dipper is? Hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Well, if you're not watching the news, you need to, because we are in historic times. We're watching and waiting to see what is going to happen in the Middle East and whether or not the United States will be involved. I will tell you that as we speak right now, Trump has assembled his national security team, and they are in the Situation Room. So that's a clear indication that there are dynamics at play in which Trump may have to make a decision from the Situation Room. So we're waiting and watching to see. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. But number 1 of the Triple Dipper is called Threading the War Needle. He's threading the war needle, and I'll tell you all about it. That's number 1, Triple Dipper. Number 2, okay, if we can get to it all, because there's breaking news, because it's going to keep on going, I'm sure. But if we can get to it, number 2 is no kings, no mojo. Listen, the No Kings protests, the ones that didn't break out in violence, broke out in ridiculousness. They broke out in jackassery. They broke out in just any manner of tomfoolery. It was unreal. So we're going to talk about the No Kings having no mojo. That's number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, the migration dissipation. Okay, I just heard a stat last night that blew me out of the water. That right now, the statistics indicate there have been 1 million self-deportations. 1 million self-deportations since Trump took office. Y'all, that is huge. I mean, and we also, by the way, just reached up. I'll go ahead and break the news right now. We just apparently in the last few days, for the first time in memory, have reached a point where more people are leaving than are coming in. That is huge.
Yeah, I think it was 50 years.
The first time in 50 years?
Mm-hmm.
That's
crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, we needed that. And we'll talk about that as number 3 on the Triple Dipper, migration dissipation. All right, let me move into the Rightside Way opening monologue. This one's going to be a doozy too, by the way, so stand by. But attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama, and he is indeed your daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue, and I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a little bit. All right, I got to ask you, have you ever done any sewing? Why is this serious, Phil? Well, just go with me. Have you ever done any sewing? The old-fashioned kind, where you have to actually thread a needle. And you got to have steady hands. You got to have keen eyes. You got to have the ability to concentrate in order to get that tiny thread through that little tiny hole. But if you don't thread the needle, the job can't get done, right? Well, try threading a needle in the middle of stormy winds. Okay, there's a lot of social media chatter right now. Go with me. My analogy on threading the needle is about to come tie it in, but there's a lot of social media chatter right now about war. There is. Influencers are influencing. Politicians are politicking. You got so-called neocons calling for military intervention and isolationists claiming there's never a just cause for war. Somewhere in the middle are the actual decision makers who bear the burden of actual responsibility for the actual lives of actual citizens. I mean, Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson can easily say that the use of military in the Middle East is a fool's errand. Lindsey Graham on the other side can opine vociferously that war is the only and best option to further the U.S. national interest. But in the end, none of them are the ones that history is going to judge. Candace and Tucker and Lindsey will not be remembered 500 years from now, but Donald Trump will, because he was the one who was elected to make the actual decisions and not just to spout off an opinion and then wait and see what happens. He is the one that history will judge. Donald Trump is the only one who actually has to thread the needle in the midst of the storm. And if he cannot effectively thread the needle, then the job won't get done. Let me step back and tell a story. Everyone's heard of the Nobel Prize, right? But have you ever heard the story about how it came to be? So Alfred Nobel was a genius. Born in Sweden in the middle 1800s, he was fluent in 6 languages. Over time, he had 355 patents for his inventions to his name. His family was very entrepreneurial and owned the Bofors Company. To this day, Bofors is a manufacturer of military arms, especially cannons. The U.S. AC-130 Spectre gunship uses a 40-millimeter Bofors cannon. But Alfred Nobel was most famous for inventing dynamite, a stable way to take nitroglycerin and package it for use in blasting. And it revolutionized mining, and it created opportunities for railroads to be laid in rugged ground. It made the world a better place in many ways, but it also became useful in military circles. Alfred Nobel's amazing invention made him rich. It made the world better. It was also deadly. Well, toward the end of the 19th century, Nobel was shocked one day to read his own obituary in the newspaper. Yeah, imagine that. Opens up the paper and apparently he's dead. It said, "The merchant of death is dead. Alfred Nobel," it said, "the inventor of dynamite, who died yesterday, devised a way for more people to be killed in war than ever before, and he died a very rich man." Well, he wasn't dead. It was Alfred's older brother who had died. The newspaper published the story wrong. Apparently, fake news was a thing back then, too. But it had a profound effect on Nobel. He decided he wanted to be known for something other than developing the means to kill people efficiently and amassing a fortune in the process. So he initiated what we now know to be the Nobel Prize, the award for scientists and writers who foster peace. Nobel said this, he said, "Every man ought to have the chance to correct his epitaph in midstream and write a new one." Basically, he was doing all he could to thread the needle. He could not control the fact that what he intended for good might also cause harm. It was a balancing act. It was an attempt to promote the better aspects of what some found distasteful, even dangerous, but yet he did all that he could to make things right. And that's where we are today. Trump is working to thread a needle. He has made very clear, since back in his first administration, he has made clear for years he will not abide by the idea of a nuclear Iran. And I personally agree with that. A nuclear Iran is a destabilizer on the world stage. It is a danger to our U.S. interests and our allies. Make no mistake, Iran has been killing U.S. troops and fomenting discord and supplying terrorists for decades. The Ayatollahs have made very clear that one of their chief aims is to damage or destroy the U.S. and to wipe out Israel. And when your enemies tell you what they want to do, there's no wisdom in ignoring them. If, in fact, Iran achieved its dream of becoming a nuclear power, what would they do with it? Would they sit back and smile and just feel good about themselves? Would they use it for world peace? Would they be satisfied with just having a nuke? And the answer to all that is no. A nuclear Iran would be an immediate threat to regional stability. Saudi Arabia, who hates Iran, by the way, has already said they would not sit idly by. They would then put all of their resources into developing and/or acquiring nuclear weapons themselves. Bad actors on the world stage will be negotiating with the Ayatollahs to buy nukes on the black market. And the Ayatollahs, who have sold every missile, gun, and drone that the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas ever fired, would only be too glad to be courted as the chief supplier of nuclear arms to the evil influences who hate America. And then there's the Abraham Accords. Oh, and the oil industry. Oh, and the Chinese Belt and Road initiatives. Oh, and the Russian influence in Syria. You see, everyone is watching right now to see whether or not Trump is a man of his word, saying that Iran cannot have a nuke, a man of his word who gets his allies back, or is he what the left claims that he is, that TACO, the acronym they came up with that says Trump always chickens out, at which point we could lose everything I just named. But then there's the idea of war. The idea of war in America is a jaded and ill-fated prospect, I'll be honest. I've been to war twice. I've seen good many men damaged and killed. There's a whole generation of Americans right now who grew up in the post 9/11 world who only knew an America where troops were fighting on foreign soil. And there is a general and understandable and reasonable fatigue with the idea of perpetual war. I get that. I actually agree with that. My son's in the Army right now. I don't want to see him use his incredible leadership skills in a war zone. I don't. Americans deserve peace. We want peace. But unfortunately, we have rarely known extended periods of peace. But at the same time, though, having said all that, I just watched recruiting numbers soar. And I watched on Saturday as the President of the United States just recited the oath of enlistment to 100 U.S. soldiers who raised their right hand in order to serve. because they don't believe in the need to have they don't believe that we should not have a strong military. And a strong military, by the way, is the best and most capable means of deterrence. But it's also the hammer that sometimes has to strike. It's a needle that has been threaded by every president since George Washington. My own father was highly decorated for his time in war. He wrote to me just before I deployed to Afghanistan right after 9/11. It's a very personal letter. I actually just came across it again just in the last couple of days. I don't believe I could ever get through reading it out loud to all of you without having to collect myself, but I will read one part. My dad started off in December of 2001 by saying this. He said, "Well, I guess I know now how Granny and Granddaddy must have felt when I went to Vietnam the first time." He said, "But knowing that doesn't make it any easier. And I know how you feel," he said, talking to me. "You're confident, assured that you can do the job you've been trained for. In a sense, you're eager to do that job, concerned that you're leaving your family behind, but knowing they'll be taken care of, and an assurance that God will be with you." My dad was awarded 5 Bronze Stars for valor in combat, and he was still worried about me going to war. He was threading the needle as a dad, as surely as Trump is threading the needle as a president. But I'll also tell you that I believe that Donald Trump is the man for this hour, for such a time as this. I cannot imagine what the world would be like if Biden were still in office, because the bottom line is Iran would have been here no matter who had won the election. Iran's nuclear capabilities would have been an issue no matter who had won the election. Biden would have fallen asleep at the wheel while staffers used his auto pen to sign DEI proclamations and to pardon murderers. But Trump, he actually just canceled part of his G7 summit to return to the Situation Room and stay on top of some of the most dangerous and stormy times that the world has seen in the modern era. And I don't believe that we're going to war. I don't believe we're going to see U.S. troops on foreign soil unless Iran strikes America or American bases. But I do believe this. While I don't believe we're going to have boots on the ground, I do believe that we may see U.S. bombs on foreign soil. I do believe that we will likely see U.S. sanctions on foreign soil. I do believe that Trump has access to information and intelligence that nobody else in the world of social media influencers has. And I believe that it keeps him up all night as he works to try to thread that needle in the middle of stormy winds. Andrew Jackson, of whom Donald Trump is actually very fond, said once, "I was born for the storm. A calm does not suit me." Well, I got to be honest with you. I think Trump was born for the storms. In fact, I think he was born to thread needles in storms. And these are dangerous times. They are. And I suggest that news media and social media influencers and pundits and politicos, they all have their role in the social discourse. But my prayer is for the man who actually threads the needle. That's the most important thing we could be about right now, is praying for the man, Donald Trump, who has to thread the needle in the middle of stormy winds, because that's what he's doing. Donald Trump is threading the war needle in the winds of a storm right now. But I am glad that he's the one there to do it. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, think about it. Let's just be honest. Iran would have been there no matter who won the election. What would be happening right now if the empty suit, if the husk of Joe Biden was the one in the Oval Office? I'm glad we have a man who is willing to cancel part of the G7 summit and return to the Situation Room to stay on top of things. I trust him a lot more than I do Joe Biden. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Headline on Fox News right now, the USS Nimitz is heading to the Middle East as conflict escalates, it says. We're watching as President Trump has got his national security team in the Situation Room right now. And we'll break the news as it breaks so we can keep you guys updated. Just know that it's a fluid environment. We'll talk through the generals, if you will, the general issues and what we know of it. But then we'll also jump in on breaking news as it goes. I got to pause, though, and tell you, so the monologue I just did, the Rightside Way monologue brought to you every single day. Attorney Stan McDonald is our sponsor. So yeah, Attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's a 30-year vet in the practice of law. And I'll tell you right now, Stan's the kind of guy, he can do a great job for you as your attorney. But man, I'm just saying, he's also been in the mix, in the trenches, fighting for conservative policies and politics like an OG right side ruffian for years. So yeah, he's one of us. But Attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So you want an attorney in North Alabama? Let me tell you how to reach him. You ready? I got his phone number right here. Stan McDonald, the law firm's Wilmer and Lee. The phone number, 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. All right, I've been on a streak here lately. No representation made. The quality of legal source be forms great. The quality of legal source for the lawyers. Golly, bomb. I mean,
I don't even know why I give you a score anymore.
I just felt that.
You just get it perfect every time now, it seems.
If only the mind could move as fast as the lips. All right, text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. I want your thoughts on the monologue. I want your thoughts on where we're headed right now with threading the war needle. I'm going to be jumping into that topic here momentarily. But yes, please tell me what your thoughts are. Absolutely. Jeremy from Madison just checked in. He says, I work construction. I was at a materials warehouse when someone came in and said, the roads in Madison near 72 are icy. After thinking, what? It's June. How are the roads icy? The guy then explained, that's how they're telling the illegals where ice is. I said, I'm disgusted. Wow. Okay. The roads are icy. You know what? Too bad.
Yeah. How is that a good message if it's June? Like, you sit there and go, what?
Why don't you just come in and say, hey, ICE is doing roadblocks on this road. Don't go there, you bunch of illegals. I mean, how about this? Rightside Radio saying, that's not true. No, they're not over there.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
They're across the street.
Dave from Capshaw sent me something from the bund. Yeah, I saw that. We got a Truth Social post from Donald Trump that I'll read you as soon as we get back from the break. pretty direct, shall we say. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. We'll be right back. Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all talk about this show. This show goes from like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border there to what we now get to call once again Fort Benning. Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just radio. That's just the radio audience. And there's all of y'all in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and then live streaming the show every day on places like YouTube and X and Facebook and our website, rightsidemedia.org. Thank you very much. And then all of y'all who listen after the fact in podcasting. Look, the bottom line is about once an hour, I just have to say, here's all the places we are, but we're there because of y'all. We thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. I mentioned right before the break, Donald Trump put out on Truth Social, and this is one of those. I mean, this is a classic Trumpism. He's not pulling any punches at all. His I was about to call it a tweet. What do you call him on truthing?
Truth.
His truth.
He put out a truth.
He put out his truth. Okay. He says, we know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He's an easy target, but he's safe there. We are not going to take him out or kill him, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then he came back with one right after that said, unconditional surrender. Listen, that's where we are. He's not even saying, would you like to talk? Do you want to negotiate? Here's our terms. He's down to saying unconditional surrender. I got several text messages. You got some comments over there on the YouTube. What you got, man?
Well, first we got John from Huntsville on the YouTube saying,
John from Huntsville.
Happy Taco Tuesday. Then we got Kit from Morgan County on the Facebook. He said, great opener. Agree on no boots on the ground, but a few well-placed Moabs behind the protected entrances, one after another, would create a shockwave that would collapse a great part of the mountain and go down the shafts, destroying everything in its path.
That Moab, man, they dropped one, if I'm not mistaken. You might want to look this up. By the way, I was just showing JP the Moab right before the show started. If you're not familiar with the Moab, it stands for, oh gosh, what is it? Something air burst. It's a massive bomb. It is so big that the Moab that I was familiar with, they actually have to put it on a pallet and drop it out the back of a cargo plane. And I'm not mistaken, they dropped one in Afghanistan in the Tora Bora Mountains, didn't they?
Well, first it stands for Massive Ordnance Air Blast.
Thank you. Massive Ordnance Air Blast, which we like to just go ahead and just take the acronym Moab and say it's called the mother of all bombs.
Yeah. And you mentioned that they dropped it. So in 2017, they dropped it on an ISIS-K cave complex in the Akin district, Nagangara province, Afghanistan.
They did?
Afghanistan, yes.
I thought they dropped one like way back in the Tora Bora when the war started, trying to catch bin Laden.
They probably did that too.
It's the largest bomb outside of a nuke in the world.
It says it was used in Afghanistan in 2017, but not during the Battle of Tora Bora in 2001.
Interesting that they would say, oh, but not during the Battle of.
But this is from the Heritage Foundation, it claims.
Okay. Either way, if you're not familiar with the Moab, man, it's called the mother of all bombs for a reason. It is a massive piece of ordnance. I mean, it's like the size of a 15-passenger van. I mean, the thing is huge. And so anyway, that's what I don't know if that. In fact, I don't think that's the bunker buster we keep talking about. It's not that's an air blast. The bunker buster that we keep hearing about, which has to be delivered, believably, has to be delivered by basically American planes, B-2s, I believe. It is significant in that it actually has a dual penetration. It has a shaped projectile that hits the ground, blows its way in, and then the follow-on blast takes over from there and pile drives through the bunker. It can take out the incredibly deep and cave-like Fordo nuclear site that we're talking about. Fordo is, by the way, the major nuclear site, more so than Natanz. Fordo is the one where we believe, in fact, I heard General Keane say it this morning, if we don't take out Fordo, we don't stop their nuclear ambitions. So we'll wait and see. But right now, we're just waiting to see right now. Trump calls for unconditional surrender up on the news right now as I talk about it. He's meeting with his Intel Advisory Board, the National Security Council, in the Situation Room. and we'll wait and see. John C. from Madison checking in. He says, I had a lady tell me, he said, did they scrap the Nimitz and build an updated one?
This is apparently the one that's about to be gone, and it's about to be
It's his last cruise.
It's his last cruise. So yes, they are making a new one, but this one is like it's about done. This one is so.
Well, it's still in the game though. He follows up by saying, John C. says, I had a lady tell me on Facebook that Israel is bombing. I ran by using our jets in our tournaments that they purchased from us. What?
I think he probably meant turrets. I don't know what.
I don't know. And I turned around and told her that we are bombing. I ran that. We sold them. Okay, it's a
voice text.
This is obviously a voice text, and you're killing me with this anyway. Iran, we sold them our F-14s back before the revolution. Yeah. Okay, I see what he's saying there. So Iran, their Air Force is like just antiquated, so out of date. Most of what they have is pre Ayatollah, which would be like 1979-ish. So what? What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at Marshall Dubai's text he just sent in. He said, hey, Phil, the Moab is so intense it will sunburn your soul. I can feel my taxes going up as I type this.
I do see it. Morgan B. from South Georgia says, making common sense a superpower. William's been waiting to hear your hot take on world news today. Your friend Morgan B. Morgan B., we miss you. We're glad to hear you. I see you on Facebook, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Jeff from Indiana said, by the way, Jeff from Indiana, I want you to know, I just had another guy just text in and said, hey, Phil, love your show, but I love the truck driver guy better.
Yeah. There's been so many people that I've heard say that. I love when that truck driver calls in.
Well, no, wait a minute. Not so many people. No, I do. He's like a part of the fabric of the show. Jeff from Indiana with a long text. He says, Phil, it seems that a hand of fate always puts the right person in charge when they need to be there, and the people before them that made them the person that they are. Like your father influenced you, you're sure your granddad influenced him as well, and I figure you're an influence on your son. I hope so, man. He said, makes people the person that they are. Sometimes influence comes from strange places and ends up being wonderful, because I'm pretty sure if Dale Jackson had had the forethought of making your show, said, who knows who I'd be listening to right now. Anyway, he says, I'm glad it's you and you've been an influence on me in a positive way. Thank you so much. Jeff, man, I love you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And by the way, he texted that in before I said that somebody loves hearing him.
Yeah.
Last one, then I'll jump into my material, is John from Huntsville saying, Phil, spectacular monologue. Thank you. Also, did you hear there's a $25,000 reward out for a New Jersey escaped ICE detainee? By the way, JP, if the Florida Panthers win tonight, they'll win the Stanley Cup for a second straight year. There you go.
How about that?
So yeah, let's talk about this. We are threading the needle right now. When I say that, let me say there's a lot of debate out there, and there are people who I love and respect. I'm not a fan of Candace Owens, but I love Tucker Carlson. And in fact, I would say that Tucker's style has been inspirational to me. When I do my monologues daily, when I'm on this show opining, when I am gathering up my resources and trying to make sure that I don't sound like I'm winging it, Tucker Carlson was part of the inspiration for being able to do it that way. I will say this, one place that I have always found myself feeling somewhat counter to Tucker is on his foreign policy. He is absolutely an isolationist. I have never heard him say that he believes that military action could potentially be necessary. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't believe that. Tucker's a smart guy. I think he understands that like 9/11 prompted a need for military action. We could not allow the Taliban and Al-Qaeda to continue to exist in the way that they had been, and just take it on the chin. So I don't know for a fact. I don't reach back into the archives and try to figure out what Tucker said post 9/11, but I don't think he was opposed to that. I do think he was probably opposed to Iraq. There are times when I look back and I'm opposed to the war in Iraq, even though I served there, but I think I've earned the right to say that. I don't spend a lot of time contradicting it because that time is done for me, but I will also tell you that I'm disappointed in some aspects of it, not all of which are related to getting it started, some of which is the way they ended it. Because if you remember, the same way we pulled out of Afghanistan with, chucklehead Joe Biden at the helm, we also ripped the Band-Aid off and, uncontrollably and just botched the pullout from Iraq under Obama, which, by the way, caused ISIS to grow. And then we had to send people back in to fix that. So, all said and done, it is imperative you have the right man at the helm. And let me say this too. I served with guys who did not come home. So I find myself loath to contradict the war where good people died that I knew, because I feel like I'm doing them a disservice. I know that's not necessarily adequate or accurate, but the truth is it just bothers me to get out there and start demeaning the overall a war that I know good people died in. But I will say that I have problems with Iraq. I have problems with the way it wound up, especially. But I also look at war as being a necessary evil at times. I think that there are neocons. What's a neocon, Phil? A neocon is kind of like that. It's a neoconservative. It's that person who believes in the foreign policy of the United States being thrust forward with the military taking the lead on getting us into a position which may involve armed conflict, as long as it means that we're getting our foreign policy out there. I believe that foreign policy, military action, should be the last resort, but never off the table. So I'm going to say something that I've said multiple times. There's an acronym called DIME. And if you're looking at trying to influence the world, if you're going to be a figure on the world stage that actually has some credibility and has some clout and has some influence, then you're going to use all four of the acronym pieces of DIME. That's diplomacy, that's intelligence, sometimes it's called information, that's military, and that's economics. Of those four, all four are necessary. You can't be effective on the world stage without employing all four: diplomacy, intelligence, military, and economics. But the military should be the last resort. I really do believe that Trump is making the military the last resort here. He has said since back in his first ever time in office that Iran should not be allowed to gain a nuclear weapon. Iran with a nuclear weapon is an absolute destabilizing danger, not just to the region, but to the world. I can expand on that a little bit more as we go. But a nuclear capable Iran is a really, really, really dangerous element that we cannot allow to happen. And he's been saying that for years. That being said, he also came into office. And what we've learned most recently is that Iran put a contract out on him, and that it was thwarted last year. I didn't recall hearing that back then, but what we're learning right now from Kash Patel and members of the Department of Homeland Security is that they were able to thwart an attempt or a contract that was put out on Donald Trump's life by Iran. He still came into office, though, not intent on just like lashing out. He came in and he began a negotiation process. He came in and began a negotiation, and he actually told Iran, I'm giving you 60 days. Come to the table and have a discussion. And on day 61, he didn't do like Obama and say, well, that would be a red line for me. And then it really wasn't a red line, and everybody saw that. He said, you got 60 days. And on day 61, he stepped back and let Israel have at it. And that's where we are today. More on this, though. Why is the United States looking at possible armed conflict? What kind of conflict would we have? I'm going to unpack that for you. You guys are welcome to text in. I want your thoughts on this. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. We'll take more of those texts. You guys bring it on. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, so I got to tell you, there's a number of things I think you should expect to see over the coming days, militarily, diplomatically, all of it. Looking at dime, what's going to play out? Well, diplomatically, I think the State Department is leaving the lines open, but they've also put a serious ultimatum on the Ayatollahs. And in fact, Trump even issued the statement today: full surrender, complete surrender. Well, okay. So State Department is going to continue to negotiate, but Trump has also said they know how to reach us, meaning we're through reaching out. Well, that's in diplomacy world. That's a bit earth shattering. That means we're not trying to reach for it anymore. We have pulled back and said, look, it's on you, man. You know where we are. The ball's in your court. So on the diplomacy side, that's what's happening. But there is still, I believe, an open line. Diplomacy is also going to be coupled with economics. I think you're about to see an announcement of some major sanctions, more so than we've probably ever had on Iran. There is a sense right now that Iran is on its heels, that the regime is on its heels right now. Keep in mind, the Iranian regime just came into being like roughly around the late 70s. I remember it. I remember when it was the Iranian Revolution. It was the People's Revolution. They overthrew the Shah, and the Shah, his family still lives in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. Shah Reza Pahlavi. But when they overthrew the Shah, Iran had been our ally. And there was a period of time there where it began to get a little rocky, and then it got really rough. And there's some amazing stories out there about, like when Ross Perot went and rescued his own employees. That's just awesome to me. It's one of the best. I read that book again recently. It's an amazing book. But you're looking at economics. Sanctions are going to be coupled on here. The intelligence and information side of this is, right now we're actually hearing that the Voice of America radio, which has been taken back from the libs, Voice of America, I think Carrie Lake is in charge of it. Voice of America radio is broadcasting heavily to the people of Iran because the sense is, like I said a moment ago, that the Iranian regime is on its heels and that they're hoping to see the Iranian people throw out the Ayatollahs and get rid of the mullahs who have been radicalizing their governance. The people of Iran are largely beaten down, and they've been living under tyranny for decades, and we keep hearing they're sick of it. They are sick of it. They're tired of women being beaten in the street because their ankles showed. They're tired of seeing things happen, like people disappearing during the night. They're tired of having their businesses nationalized because they were deemed no longer necessary. So all said and done, we're wondering, can we see an input of support to the people who would rise up and do the job for everybody else? And then there's the military. What I think you're about to see happen in the next maybe 24 hours. We're already watching as carrier strike groups are being augmented in the region. And what that does is it gives us over-the-horizon capability to launch airstrikes. Not that we would launch them per se, but we have to have them on ready status because we have 40,000 U.S. troops and major installations over there in that region that we have to protect. We also have allies that we have said that we would provide additional protection to. It doesn't mean by having a carrier strike group there that we are posturing to attack Iran. What it does mean, though, is that we are saying you will not attack our stuff, because Iran has threatened to do so. And if they lash out, the question is, would they lash out at an American installation or an American, carrier or something else going on in the region? Well, we got to have the protective measures in place. And then there's just the possibility that we may actually launch a strike. We could launch a strike from there. What would that look like? I don't think we're going to see American boots on the ground. And I say that with a slight caveat. American boots on the ground? I'll tell you what I think about the potential for what we may never get to read about in the headlines. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. Hour number 2 coming up. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on a Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday, baby. But by the way, I had meatloaf last night. Did you?
Did not.
I had meatloaf Monday. I went home. There it was. It was gorgeous.
I'm jealous.
Meatloaf Monday.
I mean, I could have gotten it, but I just didn't.
You got it. I keep telling you, go down the road to Pruitt's.
Yeah.
Pruitt's, meat and 3.
I need to go try it out.
Saying.
Or just get my mom's recipe and make it myself.
Okay, if that happens, I need to know.
Yeah.
Okay. So, by the way, your camera's working today.
Tis.
That's okay.
Things
are coming back online.
Yep.
All right.
The
I like
storm
it.
outage.
You are indeed the switch master over there. I got a bunch of text messages I'll be catching up on here in a moment. You want to text the show? It's 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text me and tell me what you think about all this stuff. I was in the middle of talking about the military option, and I mentioned the fact that the Nimitz is en route. Carrier strike groups are building in the region. We have, I'm certain, we have got all of our 40,000-ish U.S. troops in the region on some measure of enhanced security. I suspect that we have increased our security protocols overall. Our force protection posture is enhanced. But I would also say, here's what I expect with regards to Iran itself. Will Iran feel an actual U.S. strike, or will we just continue to be an outside supporter of Israel's efforts? And I think the answer to that is yes and yes. I think we're going to wind up seeing, my guess is we're going to wind up seeing some of our bunker busters being transported in by U.S. planes for an airstrike, because that may be the only way to make sure that Natanz and Fordo and the other nuclear sites around Iran's country are fully offline and incapable of being rekindled. And I don't think Iran thought this was going to happen. I think that Iran really thought that they would have one more, well, we got you. Well, we kept you on hold. Well, we gave you the stiff arm. Well, we fooled you again. And that's not happening. Trump has been very clear. It's on the news again right now, saying Iran is not going to have a nuclear weapon. By the way, Iran is roughly 8.5 hours ahead of where we are right now. That means it's what, 9:30 their time-ish, 9:35?
No, it is 11:30.
11:30. Okay.
PM their time.
Do your math, Phil. Do your math. This is why I was not an accountant.
I'm not either. So there you go.
Anyway, it's dark over there. It's getting close to midnight. Trump's meeting in the Situation Room has ended. What does that mean? I don't know. What I do know is if something was happening and they were in the Situation Room to monitor the activity and to give, strike authority at the last second, then it's already occurred and we'll find out about it later. It may also mean that they were just in the Situation Room to go over the latest intelligence and to cover down on where we are and to make sure all the assets were being pre-positioned. I believe that not only will you see airstrikes, I think there is one other possibility. When I say no boots on the ground, I'm talking about conventional forces. I'm talking about moving in. I'm talking about occupation. But I am confident that we have the ability to put special operations on the ground to do a number of things. There are some things that you almost can't get done without having some measure of human eyes. I mean, it's the world of satellite technology and drones is amazing compared to where we were just when I got in the Army. I mean, just like, good Lord. But there's something about having boots on the ground to give you true bomb and damage assessment. There's something about being able to laze a target from the ground. There's something about being able to assess the capabilities and gather the actual intel from the ground that is unparalleled. And so I would not be a bit surprised to find out we have some measure of special operations capable troops that are in the region, maybe already on the ground. We know that Israel did. In fact, Israel, my gosh, these people, Israel actually had its Mossad and special operations forces in Iran before the airstrike started. You know why? Because they actually had hidden and pre-positioned their drones in country so they wouldn't have to fly thousands of miles. So they actually had little drone bases hidden in the desert, and they had their special ops teams go in early and launch them from inside Iran. Israel's awesome. So I expect that. Let me comment on a couple things, and then we're going to play some soundtracks. I got a couple of clips that I think you guys need to hear. I will say this. I think it's notable. I got a piece here from Fox News. I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. Dateline today. Trump and Rubio cut their G7 trip short. This is a big deal. Think about Joe Biden. Did he ever cut anything short besides his workday? I don't think so. I don't recall him ever having to rush back to the Situation Room, and there were reasons why. I never heard anything about Joe Biden canceling a trip or doing something differently to ensure that national security was addressed. For Trump and Rubio to come back from the G7 summit early and head to the Situation Room was a clear indication that things have reached a new level. But I'm also really glad he did. I think it shows the world what's happening. And I'll tell you what, that in itself was a part of the DIME acronym. That was information. That was, the world could see it. The world can track his movements. It's not like he's hidden. Air Force One is pretty obvious. And when other world leaders see Trump and Rubio get up from the table and leave early and head back to the White House Situation Room, you got to know that the intelligence piece that came to Iran was, oh, crap. He's heading back to the Situation Room. I'm glad he did. What would Joe Biden have done? I think Joe Biden would have been taking a nap. I think he would have been trying to figure out why he can't go to his beach house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Why do I have to have a special meeting? Where do I stand? That's where we would have been. That's exactly where we would have been. Listen, I got a couple of sound clips here for you. Which one do I want to do first? What do you think? Let's do Charlie Kirk.
Sure.
This is audio clip number 1, and I'm going to play this because there's a lot of discussion right now about whether or not the U.S., in fact, I'm looking at it right now on the screen, Fox News, should the U.S. get involved in the Israel-Iran conflict? We're already involved. We've been involved for decades. Oh, there it is over there on the left side. Tucker Carlson talking to Steve Bannon, saying that he disagrees with the idea of taking any action on U.S. strikes in Iran. I get all that. It's that thread in the needle thing I talked about earlier. Charlie Kirk did a great job of discussing the threading of the needle in a discussion with Jesse Waters on this very thing. And he talked about the fact that, the under 30 generation is very concerned about this because they grew up watching nothing but war on the news. I say that, not really. I think it got to the point that most folks were just almost benign to it. But at the same time, we don't want continual war, and I get that. Charlie Kirk addressed it really well. Go ahead and play it.
On the right, they're saying don't forget about Iraq. How are you reconciling these issues?
Well, first, this is the moment that President Trump was elected for. Thank God that we have President Trump in the Oval Office with this high-stakes situation. Look, President Trump 10 years ago, he went down the golden escalator. And when he announced for the presidency 10 years ago to this day, he remade the Republican Party on foreign policy. He said no more permanent wars in the Middle East. He criticized the Bush-Cheney philosophy of endless quagmires. Albeit, though, he is not an isolationist. He is willing to use violent and precise force against our enemies, like taking out Soleimani or dropping the Moab, if and when necessary. President Trump understands his base extraordinarily well. He knows that his base does not want another Iraq. He does not want Libya, does not want a civil war or bedlam where the United States is left carrying the bag. But also, President Trump has been morally clear for a decade Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. And President Trump has the talent, the expertise to be able to thread that needle. The generation that I represent, Jesse, the under 30 crowd, they absolutely are very war weary. Many of them voted for President Trump on college campuses because they did not want to see a Joe Biden or George Bush philosophy where we get into this endless conflict where we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars. I think President Trump will be able to balance those two things while defending our allies, saying that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon without having to deploy a single American troop or even having America involved from the sky. President Trump can get that deal done while fulfilling the mandate that the voters gave him.
Great job at describing that. Quick thoughts on that, JP?
I mean, I agree. I am part of that under 30 crowd that he's talking about. I mean, one of the big reasons I voted for Trump was to not have new foreign, wars that are going to be, involved with regime change or going to keep us in the war for long periods of time. And I think it's important to keep in mind and perspective, what do we want to accomplish from this? Do we want to simply get rid of Iran's nuclear capabilities? And we can have that conversation. However, if we start to move towards the U.S. involvement to get a regime change in Iran, that is kind of where I get a little worry of like, okay, how many times have we done that? How many times has it been successful? And you can talk about if you don't like the Ayatollah or not, and that's a completely different argument. I think the conversation of should the U.S. participate in overthrowing the Ayatollah, that's where I think it starts to get dicey and where you start to lose my support a little bit. And like I said, I think Trump can balance both without getting a full-fledged war with Iran while also getting rid of the nuclear capabilities. Fine, but I worry when I see people like Lindsey Graham go, hit the Ayatollahs, and start to go to, and I'm like, we've done this song and dance how many times, I mean, I was told by people how Assad need to be overthrown in Syria, and now we see the new regime in Syria murdering Christians. So it's like, is regime change always the best thing, So I don't know. I think it can be done, but I am praying for President Trump that he threads the needle the right way and is able to get rid of their nuclear capabilities without having a full-fledged forever war. So
well said, dude. Take it to a break. Take it to a break right now. I want to get y'all's input. We'll come back with some text messages and start moving towards the end of this topic. But I'll tell you right now, as the news is breaking, we'll stay on it because it's fluid, y'all. It's a fluid environment. And the Situation Room meeting is over, which tells me that something may have happened. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. I got a ton of text messages. Y'all text me. Tell me what you're thinking. Israel, Iran, United States. Where are you on it? Tell me what you think about the whole thing. And I'll tell you too, there's just differing opinions all over the place. I mean, people that I trust are in different camps. It's a weird dynamic for me right now. I'm generally speaking, like I said before, a fan of Tucker Carlson's commentary, although I will say for years I have thought of him as an isolationist. It's the one issue that I find myself constantly going, oh, come on, Tucker, you can't say that, and yet right now he's at odds with Trump. I mean, Trump actually called him kooky. This is, by the way, don't forget, back in 2021, Hot Mike, Tucker Carlson's out there saying, Donald Trump, I hate him passionately. That was kind of one of those, oh, that didn't go well kind of moments. But he was on Steve Bannon's War Room and talked about the fact that he thinks that this Iran conflict may be President Trump's downfall, that his entire base is going to reject him. I reject that. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there will be people who are aggravated. There'll be some who are questioning, and there'll be some who are worried, but nobody believes that we need to go ahead and just reject Donald Trump and say, we would have been better off with Joe Biden. I don't know anybody would say that. I think a lot of the left has even forgotten that. So, or Kamala Harris.
Well, I feel like a lot of people are twisting what Tucker said, and I listened to the whole interview. I mean, I'm a big Tucker fan, and I consume all of his content, but the main thing he said, and that was just like how George W., when he came into office, had all of these great domestic plans, and then he gets involved in a war with Iraq, and all of those domestic plans go bye-bye, and the Iraq war consumes everything. And I think what he was trying to say was all of what Trump's doing right now that's winning will go away if we get consumed.
That's also not accurate. I mean, Bush didn't come into office to go to war with Iraq. He came into office and 9/11 happened, and then he wound up being in Afghanistan, and Iraq was 2 years later.
Right.
So 2003.
And I think all he was trying to say is if we get in a war with Iran, all of the good stuff goes away because we're just going to be so consumed with that. And I think people are twisting that to, he said stuff he didn't actually say. But
it got a quote here. He said it would end Trump's presidency.
Yeah.
And I think that's extreme. I think that's too much. I don't think that it would end Trump's presidency is what I'm saying. And Trump's a one-term president anyway. He's not going to be, he's in his second term. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Trump's not going to be reelected after this. And I'll be honest with you, in the end, history's going to be the one looking back. History's going to be looking back on the one guy. They're not going to be looking back on, now, what did Tucker say? History's not going to look back. Well, here's Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich's Daily Caller. Newt Gingrich is actually saying, we will never see this situation resolved until the Islamic Republic actually undergoes regime change, which is that phrase you used a minute ago. He actually believes, and he's talking about it not necessarily like the United States foments it, but the United States allows it to happen. He said, if you get regime change, you're in a different world, and you wouldn't have to use American tax dollars on it. There's amazing things happening on the streets in Iran. I just saw a piece a minute ago, Bloomberg reporting that Russia has withdrawn its support from Islamic Republic. That's interesting. I got a piece right here. Iran's Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, the son of the former Shah, is declaring the Islamic Republic collapsing and says its end has come. So I think regime change without the U.S. having boots on the ground is a possibility. What's amazing to me, though, is to watch people whose opinions I typically are aligned with be in different camps on the way forward. How much time we got? No, there's no time for it. We'll do this after the break. I've got a piece from Jack Keane. General Jack Keane usually always has what I consider to be the best peace through strength, military, foreign policy type not rhetoric. What am I looking for? Commentary. I think is usually the most incisive. I mean, the man's had 4 stars. He's earned it, but he's also staying very much in the mix. He's also truly a friend of the Trump administration. He even turned down the opportunity to be Secretary of Defense because he felt like he was more effective outside the administration, running the Institute for War. He studies it in great detail, and he comments on it. When we get back, I'll play you a commentary he made with Brett Baer on Fox just yesterday. Very incisive. David at Bucky says, Phil, the under 30 crowd tired of war. I remember back in the 60s, every newscast started off with the daily casualty count. It was the reporting of the war that led to the animosity back here at home. The eventual disgraceful pullout of Vietnam and the poor treatment of Vietnam veterans for so many years. Yeah, I get that, and I think social media sometimes foments some of that now. But I'll be honest with you, I don't think that the under 30 crowd, one of whom is sitting across from me, is like saying we're anti-American now and we wouldn't answer the call if the day came. I mean, I look at this past weekend. Trump did a oath of enlistment ceremony with like 100 young recruits and other soldiers wanting to re-up. So, listen, differing opinions on the way forward. But I don't think anybody is casting America aside and burning flags in the street. Phil, well, the left is. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. This show right here goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border to what we now get to call once again Fort Benning. Fort Benning. And then big old patches in North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And that's just the radio. And then there's all y'all live streaming the show on Facebook and Rumble and X and our website and YouTube. Thank you very much. And then you podcasters, we appreciate y'all too. Anyway, the bottom line is we love this audience everywhere you are and whichever way you dial in. Thank you so much for making it all worthwhile. I don't know. Do I have to end this topic? I can go as long as I want to. I guess I own the microphone.
You can talk whatever you want.
I just feel like I can't get off of it, but
there's no time limit.
There's no
5.
Well, okay, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
I got a piece here from General Jack Keane. If you would go ahead and cue up number 2. And I will get a couple more text messages real quick. John from Lexington, South Carolina says, the isolationist branch of conservative movement was formed by neocons trying to nation build in the Middle East. As a side note, John Bolton is probably cheering Trump on this. John Bolton. I used to love John Bolton. And then it got to the point that I felt like if he wasn't at war, he wasn't happy. And it's kind of hard to stomach that after a while. Nathaniel from Huntsville says, regime change was supposed to be a panacea for all of our problems in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria and Chile and Cuba and Russia and the Soviet Social Republics. It worked out okay with regime change in Germany and Japan post-World War II, but nothing is certain. Yeah, I mean, you can also look at what happened in Libya, Gaddafi. I mean, that didn't quite go well, but that was also a Hillary Clinton debacle. So, I mean, regime change, what does that mean? Well, I guess, first of all, don't stand in the way of the ordinary course of events if a people want to get rid of their despots, their tyrants. At the same time, I don't think the United States needs to be in the business of stepping in the fray and, trying to do a Bay of Pigs.
Well, Syria is the big one for me because how long do they say how Assad needed to go? And now that and I'm not saying Assad's a good guy, but look what filled the vacuum is Christians being slaughtered in Syria. So regime change is not always like.
Yeah, but I mean, we didn't go put that guy in charge. I mean,
well, we helped overthrow Assad, so I don't know.
We kept them from killing the Kurds, and made sure that ISIS didn't have any more ground over there. The Russians are the ones to blame for the way things went with the Assad regime.
I just think that just because you don't like somebody, just keep in mind what's going to fill that vacuum. It may not be a good thing that follows it all the time.
John C. from Madison says, I think if the people rise up against Iranian leadership, we should help them by funding them and giving them arms. It almost happened when Obama was in office. However, he loved Iran so much that he would not give the people any support. I think sanctions from the outside, I think messaging from the outside, I don't know that we're going to be shipping arms into them and get into an Iran-Contra deal again. I don't know that we're going to be doing like arms to Nicaragua again. I'm not saying we're not. The CIA can do what the CIA does, but they're going to have the direction of the boss right now. And I'm not sure the commander-in-chief is wanting to get into being the author of a regime change. But what he's also not going to do is sit idly by and try to prop up the Ayatollahs and give them pallets of cash like Joe Biden did. I think Obama and Biden are the reason why we're in the position that we are right now, because they were feckless. They thought that appeasement was the way forward, and it never is. Appeasement never works. Appeasement is a delay tactic. Appeasement is kicking the can down the road. Appeasement is, what happened in the onset of World War II with Neville Chamberlain and Hitler. And it didn't work out very well, did it? Chip from Muscle Shoals says, whatever Lindsey Graham says, do the opposite. The guy never met a war he didn't like. There you go. Tom from Decatur says, I'm a little concerned about the DDGs deployed to the Middle East. He said the Arleigh Burke, the class ships DDG-51. Okay, this is a Navy guy, obviously. The latest Arleigh Burke class is the Intrepid. I hope the older ships were updated appropriately for today's warfare. I was on the Stout DDG-55, a capable platform, but older armament even in my day on her. Aegis destroyers were a potent platform back then, but I'm sure it's a different theater now than it was. The interesting thing you got right now, though, Tom, is that Iran is so antiquated that it's almost as if our current platforms are new to them. So, Iran is still trying to fly F-14s they got when the Shah was still in charge. So I'll tell you what, let's do this. What time we got? Yep, let's do it. General Jack Keane, you got that piece ready? General Jack Keane, in an interview with Brett Baer, talking about the onset of conflict and what this means and how it's going to look. Play it.
Is really quite extensive. It goes beyond 12 sites, and they have spread out the enrichment, and they have spread out the centrifuges, and they've spread out the storage of enriched uranium. So no one site can you take down. The majority of the nuclear enterprise is still out there in play. We've only been in this for 3 days now. This is the beginning of a campaign to systematically take them down. Fordo and other sites like that are deeply buried. I mean, Fordo's a half a mile down, right. 2 to 3 feet wall. So this is a formidable thing. I do believe it's in the United States core national interest to help Israel finish off Iran here in terms of its nuclear enterprise.
And for the people who say we're going to get drawn into this thing and we're going to be there forever and there's going to be a conflict with...
Iran has a weak military, hardly any Navy to speak of. The Army's poorly trained, poorly equipped, although it's got big numbers and poorly led. The Air Force is 1970s vintage. They haven't flown an airstrike against Israel yet in terms of taking on their fighters. So the idea that Iran is going to go to war with the United States and Israel, they lose their regime over that. They don't want any part of that.
Well, it's always great to have your analysis.
Interesting dynamic to hear a 4-star say that's not going to happen. He is I would not call General Jack Keane a neocon. I would not call him a war hawk. He's certainly a veteran. He's certainly a veteran of war, but he's also somebody who's extremely knowledgeable. And I think he's giving a fairly clear image. He expects this to be an air campaign. He expects this to be much like the Bosnia campaign, which I'll be honest with you, it's hard for me as a ground pounder. I'm an infantry guy. It's hard for me as a ground pounder to say that boots on the ground are not always necessary. I'll be honest, it's hard to find a true war in which there has been a lack of boots on the ground. That being said, I don't think it has to be our boots. And I do believe that right now what we're looking at is a situation where the Iranian regime, the Ayatollahs, the Iranian regime is unstable. Their economy is fractured. Their military is depleted. Just in the last 3 days, they have seen their leadership in the military decapitated. They've seen their Iranian scientists taken out, which clearly indicates that not only could it happen, but we knew where they were to make it happen. I say we, Israel. At the same time, they have been putting all of their effort into building nuclear capability. Why? Well, peaceful means it was just going to be for... You don't enrich uranium to the levels that they have been in accordance with the IAEA's report on them. The IAEA, by the way, is a notoriously liberal organization. They're not like they're super Trump friendly at the IAEA, but the IAEA has said they are literally reaching 90% enrichment. They were within perhaps weeks of having upwards of 10 to 11 nukes. They could make a dirty bomb now. Henry from Madison says, I think of this statement often in regards to President Trump. I believe he has risen to the task that God's called him to. Thanks be to God. And the statement is, God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Nice, Harry. Thank you. What else we got here? Bruce from Springville says, one of my favorite weapons during action against Iraq is the fuel air bomb. It literally barbecues everything within 1.5 square miles and turns tanks into pressure cookers for its crews. Dang, Bruce. Dave from Capshaw says, Phil, do you remember back when Iran had American hostages, the parody song "Bomb Iran" to the tune of the Beach Boys' Barbara Ann? Oh, I do. I think it might actually been it might have been a Rush Limbaugh special. Bomb, 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 bomb Iran. That was a Rush Limbaugh thing back then. What? You got to sing it?
No. Definitely not.
Kim from Athens says, I've always been a huge supporter of our troops. I even married the military once. She says. Phil, now that we know everything we know about the corruption in our government and the lies we've been told about probably everything, how do you reconcile that knowledge with sending more sons and daughters to fight a war? Do we know the real truth this time? Can we trust it? enough to send our loved ones to war? I'm having trouble aligning the two. Give me your advice. Well, I think I've been touching on some of that. I know your text came in a little while ago, so I'm not hitting it right when it came in. But I'll say this. First of all, I voted for the man who's in the office right now. So there's that. I also trust the people that he has surrounded himself with. So there's that. I have not found myself having any trouble aligning with his policies on anything to date. And there's that. I also know that at some point I have to trust. And I don't mean like blindly. I don't mean like willy-nilly, whatever you say, sir, 3 bags full. But I am saying that at some point I have to make a calculated effort to discern the truth. And then at some point I have to decide it is or it ain't. So that being said, I could not trust, and I could trust but verify, and I can choose not to trust at any given time I want to. But I just said that I've got a person who I trust more than who was in there, and I've got a person who I believe has got my best interest at heart, and I've got a person who I believe is determined not to send my son who's in the Army right now over there. I don't think we're going to be sending sons and daughters. I do think we're going to see some things happen from afar, but I don't think we're going to have boots on the ground. Here's the caveat to that, and I'll probably close on this. Iran knows that a boots on the ground war with the U.S. is something that it cannot prevail on. It won't. It can't. The question is, what will the drowning man do on its way out? If Iran gets reckless enough and we find out that nuclear fissile material has moved its way out of the country, if we find out that they decide they want to strike at an American interest in the region or anywhere in the world, or if we find out that the millions of people who came streaming across the border during the Biden administration for the last 4 years contain terrorist cells who are just waiting for the order from the Ayatollah to do something, I will tell you it'll be a whole new day at that point. But Iran knows that. And the Ayatollahs know that their regime will be done if that happens. And their only chance to cling to power, which they love more than they love the death to Israel, they love clinging to power. Their only hope to cling to power is to survive this effort right now by Israel to emasculate their nuclear capability. But if they strike a U.S. interest or kill U.S. citizens or U.S. troops, I'll just tell you right now, it's going to be a whole different day, and we'll have an entirely different conversation on the radio. Take it to a break, JP. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. I think it's time to change the topic. If something breaks in the news, we will jump right on in. In the meantime, Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right. Hey, listen, I got to tell you, Rightside Radio that you're listening to right now, you may be already familiar, is just one of the productions of Rightside Media, the parent company. And the parent company has all kinds of stuff. We got written work that gets published all over the region. We've got, of course, the radio show 5 days a week. We got the podcasting, and the podcasting is also including the video podcasting. We have multiple video podcasts that come out virtually every week. And the one that we've really been spending a lot of time on lately is what's known as a long form podcast. And that basically is a deep dive conversation. And we have chosen to start the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams. It's our long form podcast. We built a new studio for it. It took months to get everything ready. And we've actually just released, as of today, it's 6 p.m. today, JP, 6 p.m. today, the latest edition of the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams comes out. Y'all, it's going to be an epic conversation, especially if you're military minded. It's a 2-hour conversation with Mike Durant from Black Hawk Down. Mike Durant has a story that is just unparalleled, and we spend a lot of time just talking about Mike Durant, his philosophies on life, about his experiences even outside the military, and about what it took to even become a special operations aviator. Because that, by the way, is a selection process. You don't just get to sign up for it and they take you. He flew in multiple armed conflicts, but his experiences in the Battle of Mogadishu, Black Hawk Down, just unbelievable. I had read his book. I had seen the movie, like many of you. I had read stories on it, but I had never heard even some of the details that came out in this in-depth conversation. So yeah, the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams. It's a deep dive into the details of life with some of the most interesting people you'll ever meet. And tonight comes out at 6 p.m. The Just Right podcast with Mike Durant, Black Hawk Down to business leader. And it's a good one. I can't encourage you enough. Check it out. Yeah, where you can find it on our website at rightsidemedia.org. You can find it on our YouTube channel. Just go check it out and do us a favor. This would mean a lot. If you go to these places where we host all our stuff, whether it be X or Facebook or YouTube or Rumble, if there's a like or a subscribe option, it doesn't cost you anything, but it means everything to us. Because we are a growing small media company that's up and coming, and it means that we get to actually see more work that we can do because your interaction with us by just clicking those things, actually the platforms let us do more at that point. So anyway, we would appreciate it very much. Click like, click subscribe, all the things. Just a few more text messages before I go to the break at the top of the hour. I'm going to come back. We're going to talk about, by the way, the No Kings protest. I'm calling this one the No Kings, No Mojo. There was a height of ridiculousness, and then also some of them broke out into violence. We'll talk about how that went down coming up here in a few minutes. John from Brownsboro says, Trump has proven through word and action that he's the right man for the times. He's made it known he abhors the thought of war. He ended the Korean War. The Korean War? I don't think he meant Korean War. I think he meant something else. Organized an orderly withdrawal from foreign. I know what he meant. He made peace with North Korea while he was in office last time. That's what he's talking about. Organized an orderly withdrawal from foreign theaters wherever he could, though Biden botched the Afghanistan deal. But he's also mindful that you cannot pacify a regime bent on destruction. He's the one for the job because he can make the hard choice, even though it's the last thing he wants. Thank you, John. Appreciate you. Jack from Huntsville. Jack says, in addition to hard times creating hard men, I've always believed the hard times are a sift of great men. Hard times find these men that are desperately needed. Without these times, these men may never have had history reach out to find them. History is filled with otherwise ordinary men that rise to the occasion. There's nothing ordinary about Donald J. Trump, but these are extraordinary times that put him into the time and place that we are and the world needing. Wow. That's like, I could do a monologue on that text right there. Jack needs applause. Jack, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Great text. Adam from Athens, I read a report earlier about Chinese planes seen delivering supplies to Iran. I've not heard that. If you got anything more on it, you're welcome to send it on over, Adam. Love to see it. Jeff from Indiana saying, Phil, the reason why we don't go after other countries' leaders is because that would give them carte blanche to go after ours. But according to Netanyahu, it was Iran that was behind the assassination attempts on Trump. So therefore, you get what you give. I think eventually, he says, somebody will get them. We'll see. Thomas from Athens says, Colonel, my dad Lieutenant Colonel USMC, retired in 1978, was tasked to support the Shah's information systems. Wow. It says they were enamored with this fascinating country, so much so they lived in a house among Iranian citizens, i.e., outside the American sector. He said, regrettably, my wife and I were unable to visit them there, but the sergeant that helped them get moved into their house told Dad there might be some day when he would return and on a moment's notice take them and whatever they could basically carried in their vehicle. And of course, that day came in 1979. Tragic internal hollowing out of a great centuries-old country. Wow, Thomas, that's an amazing story, man. I'd love to hear more about that. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, now, I'll tell you what, because it's going to change the subject, we're about to have to change the subject time. I'm going to another dipper. I'm going to catch up on a couple of quick text messages just to get the last few of those on the old topic. Jeff from Athens says, yeah, it was Russia's parody about bombing Iraq or Iran. Yes, I think it was. Pete from Decatur said, do you think the air defense units might be moved into Israel to assist or beefed up in some of the surrounding allied nations like Saudi Arabia? Yes, and they already are. We're seeing our own Patriot missile and THAAD systems are already in place over there, and they've been assisting with the Iron Dome capabilities in Israel. And we've also got them, I'm sure, beefed up on our own military sites as well. David Abucky says, Phil, what are your thoughts of the war power resolution that's been introduced in Congress? I think it's misguided. I think it's going to go nowhere. I think it's a shout in the dark. You're not going to wind up seeing, this is not that. We're not declaring war. And we're also, by the way, not outside of what almost everybody in Congress is willing to support, a limited interdiction. Boots on the ground, different story. But Thomas Massey is and a Democrat are the only two who have gotten together and said they want to drop this resolution in. Is there more to it that I don't know about?
Well, they've gotten a lot of, well, I say a lot. They've had several representatives at least tweet that they're with it.
How many of them are Republicans?
I have no idea. I mean, there's more Democrats than Republicans for sure backing it, but
of course they are. And then Lee from Decatur says, I was in Fort Benning in June of '80 after the failed rescue mission in Iran. This was getting to be my generation's war 45 years later, and we're still messing around with them. They are responsible for many American deaths. Yes, they are, including my time in Baghdad. Yes, they are. I tell you what, let's do this. Let's change the topic. The rain outside reminds me. It's been raining a lot lately. I feel like we live in Seattle. But the rain outside reminds me, this past weekend, they had this thing called the No Kings protest. Pray tell, perhaps perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps they got wet. I'm understanding that they got like very wet in Huntsville.
they did. I was in Huntsville. It was a powerful line that came through, pretty windy and rainy, right when the parade started. So
was there a parade? Did they actually?
Or not parade? Sorry, protest. Right when the protest started.
Well, bless their hearts. You know what's funny is, libs were actually, in fact, who was it? Tim Walz. Libs were actually hoping that it would rain on the 250th birthday celebration parade in D.C., and it didn't. But a bunch of them got wet in other places. So you may have heard the No Kings protest. Well, the No Kings protest had no mojo, is what I'm saying. I got a piece here from Daily Signal. And Daily Signal points out the absurdity, is the headline is the absurdity of the No Kings protest. Listen, I'm going to add my commentary before I jump into what the Daily Signal author says and point out that the fact that the left decided to make Saturday, Flag Day, the 250th birthday of the U.S. Army, their day to protest, is a clear indication they are so out of touch, so out of tune, that they just don't get it anymore. They don't hear themselves. They don't know how to read the room. I mean, if you want to protest, fine. Did you have to make it Flag Day, one of the most patriotic days in the U.S. lexicon of holidays? Did you? I mean, why don't you just do it on July 4th next time? But yeah. The absurdity of the No Kings protest. Says Daily Signal. Says the No Kings protest of various sizes broke out in mostly blue cities on Saturday. And they were all over the place. I will say it wasn't all blue cities. I mean, Huntsville is getting purple.
Actually, not as purple as I thought. You know, I mean, they actually, I think maybe we're a little more red this past election. But too close to purple. But no, I wouldn't say it's quite purple yet.
More purple than where you and I are standing right now.
Yes, that's true.
I hope that all the growth to Huntsville is not going to turn it into an Austin, Texas kind of mode.
Well, that's what I was worried about, but it was still strongly red this past election. So,
yep, good enough. But you're right. The No Kings protest mostly in blue cities. Several of the demonstrations had to be renamed because they took place in Canada. Where they actually technically have a monarchy because they still identify with the Commonwealth of Great Britain. Didn't you tell me? Were you the one that told me that they actually held them in England too?
Yeah, they had No Kings protest in England where
Did they call it No Kings?
yeah, where they quite literally have a king.
Okay.
It was also throughout the rest of Western Europe. So
this article points out. I thought it was very coy. This points out that the No Kings protest. It's rather unimaginative, if you will, because if you look at it, the same people, many of whom were like octogenarian boomers who were out there protesting, the same people were all excited about what used to be called the Camelot time of the Kennedy dynasty. Well, they were making reference to a royalty back then in the Democrat Party, and yet they don't want anything like that now. What this really boiled down to was there was no true defining feature of all of the No Kings gatherings. There was no true defining feature except that they just didn't like Donald Trump. No matter where you went, at the very least, the theme was Trump bad. I mean, we saw everything. We saw Trump voodoo dolls that you could beat up on while you were enjoying your time at the No Kings rally. We saw Trump piñatas that they were trying to beat with sticks. We saw basically all of it. It was ridiculous. We also saw some complete mental breakdowns. I don't know how many of y'all seen them. They're all over social media. But the liberal progressive left it's actually rather embarrassing to watch some of what they do. I mean, when you go on there and you cry and you say you're scared because of who got elected president, I have to look at you and go, you just seem to have lost touch with reality because there's actually bigger things going on. If you don't like it, just work for the next candidate that comes along in your party and try to get them elected. But that being said, the No Kings protest, how did they go? Well, generally speaking, they went about like you might think. I mean, never mind the fact that the typical kings of old were doing things like what Joe Biden did, sitting back, taking naps, eating ice cream, and letting their underlings run out there and do unconstitutional things. Kamala Harris, she got coronated to be the new party, nominee without even having a vote cast. If there was ever a monarchy effort, it was what we saw in the Democrats. And yet they're the ones claiming we're having a No Kings protest. The guy at Daily Signal calls it a liberal primal scream is all it was. What's also amazing to me is that the teachers union was involved.
are you surprised?
They're not even pretending anymore. And no, I'm not surprised, but yet at the same time I am. I'm kind of like,
that they're that open about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that they're that open about it. Like they're just like, okay, the mask is off. Let's just be what we are. In fact, we even found out just in the last couple of days that Randy Weingarten, who we'll play a clip from in a minute, by the way, I'm not sure we'll get through the whole thing.
It's like 30 seconds.
Like I said, I'm not sure we'll get through the whole thing. But Randy Weingarten, we found out, was actually one of the leaders of the Democrat National Committee. And that boggles my mind. Like, okay. But Randy Weingarten was in a screaming match. By the way, she's one of those who can't tell that she's a really bad speaker. And she just is. What?
Yes, no, I disagree with you. Yeah.
So let's take a break right now. We'll come back from the break, and I'll tell you what, we're gonna play some Randy Weingarten. And I got a piece here too from Daily Wire's Matt Walsh talking about basically that the No Kings protests were a complete disaster. They didn't really change a thing, did they? They just became, I don't know, group therapy sessions. What were they? And some of them turned violent. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just using bulletproof influence. That's what we're doing. Speaking of which, bulletproof influence. I think we have a new batch of the bulletproof influence bin shot glasses coming in. Should be here any day. I hope, because we've almost sold out of our stock. If you want to check it out, this is one of the coolest things in our inventory. You can go to rightside.media.org. That's our website, rightside.media.org. Go to our shop tab, and we got all our t-shirts and hats and coffee mugs and stickers and all that kind of stuff on there. But we also have these limited edition, custom made just for us bin shot. Oh, you're showing it up on the screen. That's so cool that you do that. Right there on the, go ahead and enlarge one. Yeah, there you go. Can you click? Yeah. So the bin shot glasses are actually, they're highball glasses that are engraved with the Rightside Media logo and bulletproof influence, and they have an embedded 308 round in the glass. Had them custom made by the Bin Shot Company for Rightside ruffians. Check them out. They're available. We got a few left, but a new batch is also on the way. So thank you very much. All right. So no kings. So why is the teachers union screaming at a no kings rally? What has that got to do with anything related to education? Does anybody know? Well, I know the teachers union hates the fact that we've got, an attempt by Donald Trump to shut down the entire Department of Education federally. I know that they hate the fact that Republicans are, generally speaking, pro-school choice. I know they hate the fact that Linda McMahon would just soon go ahead and just chest thump them and drop them from the top rope than to look at them. But you still got to look at it and go, what are you doing at a No Kings rally? You're a friggin' teachers union person. Why are you there? And I don't mean like there because it's my First Amendment right. I mean like they're representing the teachers union at a No Kings rally to say bad Trump, bad Trump. Okay, Randy Weingarten. Yes, I know what I'm about to do. Listen, it's kind of like the screaming goat. You just got to brace yourself. But in fact, you know what, JP? Let's go ahead and get everybody warmed up. Screaming goat, go. Okay, now let's play Randy Weingarten. Go.
Or the community to this president's chaos.
Oh, God.
And together we build a future of opportunity and justice for all.
She's looking at notes.
Over fear, aspiration over anger, the promise of America for each and every American. That is what we are fighting for today.
That's what we're fighting for. I'm reading it to you right now. Don't you hear me?
According to the paper I got before the rally, this is what we're fighting against.
That's by the way, that's one of those. Don't ever make her the halftime speech. All right. Don't bring her in the room and say, listen, guys, we got to get out there and play some ball. And before we go any further, I want Randy Weingarten to come in here and speak to you. It's not going to work.
She literally was like she was talking to kindergartners. So.
Well, okay, maybe that's her teachers union piece coming out.
Yeah.
That's the epitome of a. By the way, that was a large one. I think that was in Chicago. I'm not mistaken. Do you know for a fact? I don't know either. I think that was in Chicago. That was Randy Weingarten, head of one of the largest teachers unions in the nation, screaming from her notes at a rally. And you look at it and go, why? Why are you there? Well, that's just classic, though. It's par for the course. That's kind of where these No Kings rallies have been. Matt Walsh from Daily Wire wrote a piece on this. He must have done an entire segment on it because he's got like several pages of stuff here. But I'll just tell you, he also points out, he said, the funny thing is these people actually crave authoritarianism. And he's so right. He said they crave authoritarianism. We saw it during the COVID lockdowns. We saw the multiple criminal prosecutions brought against the leading presidential candidate. We saw mass censorship and surveillance. We saw any number of things that clearly indicates that they much prefer the idea of an authoritarian government. They just hate Donald Trump because he's not them. They hate Donald Trump because he's not their guy. And then a lot of these rallies you look at, and it was almost kind of funny. It's like, well, where have all the old hippies been all this time? Because they suddenly came back out. You had like 80-year-old white ladies out there with their sun hats on and their, custom made posters this on their way back from shopping at Whole Foods, making sure the world knows that they don't like Donald Trump.
There was certainly a pattern with the people at these protests.
There was indeed.
There were older, liberal women who listened to nothing but MSNBC. And I mean, that one lady was crying like
I saw that.
Full blood crying about how she's terrified. It's like this is how mainstream media fries your brain.
It was mental illness.
I feel bad. I feel bad for her because she needs to go outside and realize that not everything they tell you through MSNBC is true.
Yeah, absolutely. Although what's interesting though is MSNBC talked about the Trump parade, the Army parade on Saturday, and they said they were rather surprised that there wasn't the usual dark, malevolent energy that they saw at Trump rallies. Whatever. Now, I will tell you that AL.com wants you to know that there were hundreds that showed up.
Oh, I'm sure.
In Alabama. Hundreds.
Their source was AL.com.
Well, yeah. There are hundreds that showed up, they say, actually in Butler Green and Huntsville, according to the organizer, a guy named Jeffrey Engel.
There were hundreds.
There were hundreds here.
Okay, maybe tens. All right, there were 10 of us.
Who are you quoting, sir? Me. And who are you, sir? I'm the guy who organized it and doesn't want to look bad because nobody showed up. No, there were people there. There was a crowd there. And if anybody out there, by the way, was there or knows somebody was there, I'd love to get your comments on the text line 833-687-4448. But yeah, AL.com. Phil, did you go to AL.com? I did. I go to these places so you don't have to. Want you to know that people are fed up. There's people that are fed up. Well, there are. I know. And guess what? They also lost the election because there's not enough of them. People are fed up with how President Trump is treating us and the authoritarian overreach that just continues to slide further towards fascism, said Jeffrey Engel, the guy who organized the event, and says how many were there. People can see their very lives are being affected, says Engel. They are here to say that's not okay. Okay. Wow. By the way, it also points out that there were Black Lives Matter protests, and we had a short rainstorm, and it did slow down the musician Michaelo Bernal. And anyway, all I'm saying is there apparently was a gathering in Huntsville. Did it change things? Are you aware of any changes that were made, JP?
No, not that I can think.
I think Trump's still in office. Last I checked.
I do have to do my research and check that, but I think you're correct. Yeah.
But the press wanted you to know going into it that it was going to be a really dicey event. The newsrepublic.com. Phil, did you go to News Republic? I did. News Republic reported in the days leading up to the No Kings protests that far-right extremists were preparing violence. Really? Far-right extremists? Because what I'm looking at is an article from the New York Post that says that it was Antifa that showed up at the Portland and basically 4 law enforcement officers were injured as they tried to breach the building, the ICE detention center, with explosives and rocks. I didn't see any reports about the Proud Boys showing up and creating mayhem. Did you? I didn't. But the violence seems to be occurring on the left, who were participating in the No Kings rally. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show, this one right here, this show. I mean, goes like from Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that lovely little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And then, oh, by the way, that's just the radio audience. I got a ton of y'all. A lot of y'all texting in right now from all over the place. Everywhere in the big wide world, go to the World Wide Web. You can listen to Right Side Radio. You can live stream it. You can podcast it. Thank you very much. We appreciate y'all. You're the reason why we do what we do. Hey, I'm wrapping up this topic of the no kings having no mojo. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of galling to me that the New Republic says far-right groups are humming with the talk of potential violence ahead of the massive No Kings Day demonstrations expected to attract millions of protesters. Millions. Pretty sure we didn't hit millions, says the Wall Street Journal. Oh, good. The Wall Street Journal. Okay. Like in a Telegram channel used by groups affiliated with the Proud Boys, a violent white nationalist group, users have sent posts promoting violence. Have they listened to their own stuff lately, by the way? And then, we got all kinds of like excerpts of what people said in the chat room about what they were going to do. None of it happened. None of it. And then they want to talk about January 6th and they want to talk about Proud Boys and guess what? Did you see any major violent right-wing counter protesters showing up?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
But they were protesters who tried to storm the Capitol. Did you see that?
This weekend?
The DC Capitol. They started to overrun. I got to go find the clip of it. But yeah, I don't know if it was a No Kings protest or an anti-ICE protest. Sorry, all the protesters too.
You talking about the U.S. Capitol they did?
Yep.
I did not see that.
I'm going to pull it up. But yes.
At the same time they were doing the parade? Just down the street?
I can't remember if it was like Friday or if it was last week. But yes.
I'll tell you where it did get ugly is in Portland, Oregon. In Portland, they had a serious situation. New York Post, a violent mob of protesters breached a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Portland, injuring 4 federal officers, according to authorities. Rioters wearing black clothing launched fireworks and created a makeshift battering ram, breaking a glass door, breaching the facility. Cops declared the gathering. I can't even say it. Said that the gathering was an unlawful assembly. You think? Disperse. They had to deploy smoke, tear gas, flash grenades, and other projectiles as some in the crowd were hurling fireworks and water bottles. And then basically, it apparently finally went away. It's Portland where they've allowed this stuff to fester for a long time. What do you got?
By the way, this was on Friday of last week. I got video. I
really
put it up on the stream.
Go.
Of them storming past barricades to the U.S. Capitol.
Really?
This was an anti-military parade. I think is what they claimed it to be. But yeah, they stormed right through barricades and through Capitol Police and ran up to the stairs of the Capitol. It's amazing.
It looks like quite the active group.
Quite the insurrection, if you ask me.
This is and there they are running up the steps, sure enough.
Yep.
And there they are getting tackled. And there they are. One got pushed all the way down the steps. That's hilarious. I have not seen this.
Yeah.
The world's getting to watch me react to it. And I think I'm enjoying it a little too much.
Yeah. It's just so hypocritical. It's very hypocritical.
Yeah. Wow. No kidding. John from Harvest checking in. He says, Phil, enjoying the show. And if I text you will work, he says, enjoying the show. And I'm constantly thankful that Trump was elected president, but I had to share my Father's Day present for my wife. She got me the book Pegasus Bridge and a bulletproof glass. Whoop, whoop. Loving it. He said, I must say, I smoked a Woodford Reserve. Old fashioned, looks awesome in the glass. Cheers. Man, John, that is excellent. So you got the book Pegasus Bridge, which I recommended, and then one of our bulletproof glass. Listen, John, you have inspired me. I'm feeling pretty good. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, John from Harvest. Lisa from Huntsville says, also, the fact that it was held on Butler Green at Campus 805 tells me they were not expecting big numbers. Said, I hope the 2 breweries that are there had a good day in sales, but knowing the bunch that was protesting, they probably didn't spend a dime. Oh, that is hilarious. John from Lexington, South Carolina again says, I drove past our protest in Columbia en route to the pistol range with my boys. I'm glad you didn't stop. That could have gone badly. Marshall from Dubai again says, Phil, with Randy Weingarten shouting, I'm bleeding from my ears, and I'm sure PETA's going to show up and charge me with cruelty to animals. Sit rep to follow. Give him some screaming goat again. Ready, screaming goat, ready, go. Joe from Elkmont says, there was a lady at one of the rallies with a Thera-Trumpy booth. I saw that. A Thera-Trumpy booth. You could pay her, and she'd give you a Trump doll that you could abuse and yell at. Wow. This is typically behavior reserved for toddlers. However, the video lends examples of free market society, freedom of speech, right to assembly, and an overstimulated ability to conduct general nonsense and major stupidity. What type of king would allow such buffoonery? Morgan B. in South Georgia checking in again says, I'm not sure I've ever seen a Republican sobbing on national news like these Dems are. A bunch of betas. Morgan, love you. Thank you. David at Bucky's again says, Phil, that'd be no surprise that liberals planned their protest on Flag Day. Just remember what Biden did at the White House on Flag Day. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I do recall there being rainbow flags.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay. Now, yeah, they put up the rainbow flags.
Pretty awesome. Pretty awful. Jack from Huntsville says they have said that these protests over the last week or so have been, quote, overwhelmingly peaceful. I guess you could say the Trump Butler rally was also overwhelmingly assassin-free. Wow. Wow. That's okay. Jack is tearing it up with the text. Jack, you're a professional texter. I can tell. You're a plant, dude. You're coming in with like super duper comments today. John from Minor says, what's this? Oh, this
Send
is
him the Thom Boyer podcast.
Good. Yeah, good. Thank you. Appreciate you doing that. Checking out our Just Right podcast. Pete from Decatur says it was no coincidence they decided to hold that event on the day of the parade. They wanted to detract from the parade because I am well attended, and because it was a well attended and successful event. It would have reflected on President Trump, and they did not want that to happen. Agreed. And then Tom from Decatur, with regards to Thomas Massey doing a resolution trying to stop Trump from having any war powers, says Massey grabbing at straws for recognition as his days are now numbered, as the president feels he should be primaried. That's going to be up to his voters to decide whether they want to primary him. I think Thomas Massey has largely done a pretty decent job. He's a Freedom Caucus guy, but he's just been wrong on a couple things lately that I just listen. I totally get the opinion that we don't want boots on the ground, but the idea that you're going to say to the president of the United States, you can't do any military action. Well, where were you during the last, go round? Where were you? I didn't see this happening then. Democrats are in office. They're all about it.
I will say with Massey, the big, beautiful bill, he did point out something I don't think people would notice if he didn't say about the SALT deductions in the bill that got,
which may be amended now.
Yeah, it got down to 10,000. It was over 40,000. So I give him props for bringing that up to attention. I don't think people noticed that was in there.
Fair enough. Like I said, Thomas Massey, he gets some things right most of the time. All right, listen. It's been an amazing day, and I'll tell you right now, we plan on an amazing tomorrow. Before we go to the break, I got to remind you guys, so at Rightside Media, we really, really, really work on putting together conservative content. It's not just this show. Rightside Radio is only one of our productions. We have multiple podcast lines, and every one of them has their own genre. We got the Controversial Mom with Emily Jones from Moms for Liberty, and she talks about things you care about, to include motherhood. And we got Right Click with Birdman. And that one's framed around gaming and high-tech stuff. And he also uses that as a mode by which he can talk about conservative content. And then you got JP, who's a guru on sports. He comes out virtually weekly with Out of Right Field, and it's going to be sports-based, but it's conservative content again. I have Right Philosophy, which if you like my monologues, picture doing that, but I'm sitting in my study at my house, and I'm talking to the camera direct, and it's really, I enjoy doing that one. And then the one that we just started, and we're only a few weeks into it now. I guess this is episode number 4. Tonight at 6 p.m. Listen, if you're one of those who loves long-form podcasts and you want to see somebody who's extremely interesting, somebody who's got a dynamic life or a great story, tonight at 6 p.m., our long-form deep dive podcast discussion on the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams. That's what it's called. The Just Right podcast with Phil Williams. Episode 4 comes out tonight, with Mike Durant from Black Hawk Down. And Mike Durant is going to spend time talking about not just his life, but what it means to even become a special operations aviator. He flew in the Panama invasion. He flew on multiple other Desert Storm. He was helping do scud hunting in Desert Storm. But then there was Black Hawk Down, the Battle of Mogadishu. I thought that I knew the story of Black Hawk Down. Sitting down for 2 hours with Mike Durant and having a free-ranging discussion and going anywhere, and he held nothing back. You're going to hear stuff that I even told him at the time I'd never heard that before. Like I didn't realize some things that even happened afterwards. I had never heard that before, and I thought I'd heard it all. Mike Durant, the Just Right podcast with Phil Williams. It comes out tonight at 6 p.m. You can find it on our YouTube channel. You can find it posted on our website, rightsidemedia.org. I encourage you to check it out. We're really proud of it. A lot of great production, high quality work. Please do check it out. It would mean a lot to us. All right, brother, take me to the last break of Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Using that bulletproof influence. That's what I'm saying. I got a few quick texts, and I'll go to the phones. Steve from Huntsville says, I went on my lunch Saturday to 8:05. The venues and the bars refused to serve the protesters in purple cups. It's the entertainment district. You're allowed to walk around the grounds with a purple cup. I know a few of the managers of the venue, and they refused service to most of the people that were participating due to the fear of it turning bad. I would say there may have been 1,000 people. Oh, okay, that's good. May have been 1,000 people there, but you could definitely tell they were Democrat voters. Said I would say most of the people I saw were just excited to be there and didn't see anything out of the way. But then I had to go back to work and hang out. I didn't see any Mexican flags, which is what I was looking for. I think it was good for the ones there expressing themselves, but I don't think they changed anyone's mind. Have a great day. Steve, thank you, man. Appreciate you. Yellow Dog Mike says, hope you enjoyed the $45 million parade, which could have been used to help cuts to VA healthcare. I enjoyed the snuffling out of step marching and the one soldier walking carrying a drone over his head. Trump looked bored and sleepy. How do you live with yourself with all this shelling for taco? Cue the crickets, JP.
I love how he knew it was coming.
What's also interesting to me is for him to say all that means he watched it. There you go.
Yeah.
That's the only way you get cured. To stay with us, Yellow Dog. And then last one, John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says Phil gets an A+ for his outstanding performance. However, it's very obvious who should be today's winner. It's none other than the master of sound effects, JP, with the beyond perfect A++ for his absolutely superior Taco Tuesday performance. Congratulations. One of your best performances ever.
How about that?
That's all you got to do is hit that goat button once in a while, man. Points is kick in. Take me to the phones, because right now on the phone is Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Doing all right now. I'm finally back up to speed after all the wrecks and rain and everything else here in Tennessee.
Oh my gosh! So you're north of Nashville?
I am north of Nashville. I'm almost to Kentucky. Finally.
You know, it's funny. I can usually tell by your voice where you are.
Imagine that.
You don't even have to tell me. I can just sort of tell by your voice. Just read it. All right, man.
Well, Phil, you talk about the sound effects. You need to make a bless your heart sound effect for the Yellow Dog. That would probably work out.
That's not a bad idea. We need somebody's like Southern grandma saying, "Now bless his heart." Now, maybe that's a KI.
Well, you got a.
I'd say the KI.
You got a KIV high stepper, yeah. Step too high for a high stepper.
That's what we'll do. We'll get the soundtrack from KIV, and anytime he plays it, we'll just say, "No step too high for a high stepper."
There you go.
Well, what do you think about all the stuff we talked about today, man?
You talking about these protesters and everything. They're battering rams to the cops and everything, throwing stuff at them and everything.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to get the Iranian treatment. I'm afraid because they keep doing these things and thinking they're not going to have any repercussions. I can't wait till the cops start shooting back or whatever. If I charge a cop in full gear and with the masks on and everything else, they don't know what I'm armed with or anything else. And if I come into a cop out on the street in a threatening manner, he's not going to sit there and let me do anything to him. He's going to shoot me. And I think that's what the trouble is, because you F around and find out, basically, because they've been effing around for a while. Now they need to find out.
Well, and I tell you what, though, I am noticing more and more, though, they are finding out. In the last 4 years during the Biden administration, it was like, everybody was hands off. You can't do that. There's no such thing as repercussions, no accountability. But now I'm starting to see not just law enforcement, but even civilians. Have you seen, by the way, the videos of protesters trying to block cars and getting run over? Are you seeing that?
I just sent you a meme for that.
Oh, did you really? Hang on a second. I see it on there. Hang on a second.
All lives splatter.
All lives splatter. Nobody cares about your protest. Keep yourself out of their. Yeah. That's hilarious. All lives splatter. So, but you know what? I look at it and think, if you're going to block a road and you're going to lean forward on the car, which weighs a lot more than you do, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, well, when you play in the street, you may get run over. I think it's time, like Governor DeSantis said, if these people surround you, whatever, just put her to the floor and get them out of your way. It's there, if you're in the street, illegally in the street, and threatening somebody, It's just the same as if you come up to somebody that's got a gun and they threaten you. You got your castle doctrine. You're not going to hurt me. You're not going to kill me. I'm going to. You may have to die for what you're doing.
I will say, I don't think DeSantis had put it to the floor. I think that was the Jeff
that's
Indiana
what he
version.
should have said. He messed up. But yeah, it's like I say. I mean, these people just when you play in the street, you get what you get.
I know. If you're going to play kickball in the median of the interstate, you might once in a while get run down, and that's it's asinine to me.
They're just Darwin themselves. They're just taking themselves out of the gene pool.
Just a whole series of Darwin awards.
The more that get the Darwin awards, the better off this planet will be.
All right, brother. Listen, I got something I got to read before I get off the air. But blessings on you. I'm glad you're north of Nashville, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. All right.
All right, Phil. You have a good one.
All right, man. You too.
See ya.
All right. Listen, I got to read something for you. I want to close the show out with this. What have I got? About a minute. So Ambassador Mike Huckabee, the former governor of Arkansas, who is a solid, godly man, is the U.S. ambassador to Israel. And the Trump administration shared a text that he sent, a personal text he sent to Donald Trump. And I'm going to read it to you. I think it's very, very impressive. It says, Mr. President, God spared you in Butler, Pennsylvania to be the most consequential president in a century, maybe ever. The decisions on your shoulders I would not want to be made by anyone else. You've made many voices speaking to you, sir. You have many voices speaking to you, sir, but there's only one voice that matters, and that's his voice. I'm your appointed servant in this land, and I'm available for you, but I do not try to get in your presence often because I trust your instincts. No president in my lifetime, he said, has been in a position like yours, not since Truman in 1945, and I don't reach out to persuade you, only to encourage you. I believe that you will hear from heaven, and that voice is far more important than mine or anyone else's. You sent me to Israel to be your eyes and ears and voice and to make sure our flag flies above our embassy, and my job is to be the last one to leave. I will not abandon this post. Our flag will not come down. You did not seek this moment. This moment sought you. It is my honor to serve you, Mike Huckabee. What a great, great blessing to provide to the commander-in-chief as somebody who's been a chief executive and a longtime conservative pundit, Mike Huckabee.